Hey, brothers and sisters, what if I told you that the size of a woman's buttocks and the fascination that so many people have about black women's butts may be rooted in biology? With today's 10-minute workshop, we're going to explore that, okay? So, first of all, from an evolutionary psychology standpoint, attraction isn't always random, right? There's a biological factor that has to do with waist to hip ratio. We're going to call it WHR. So this shows basically that a fuller buttocks typically signals a lower waist to hip ratio. So a smaller waist and a wider hips, which has historically been associated with fertility and reproductive health. Okay. So yes, basically and biologically, men across many cultures are often drawn to traits that suggest fertility and strength. Okay. But here's the catch. Biology is filtered through culture too, okay? So what people find beautiful is shaped by their environment, your upbringing, and society. And so that is how, in many cases, it seems as though, well, especially years ago, it seemed like all black men were concerned with was bigger butts, and white men love big tits, right? But again, you got to remember a lot of the psychology, and we forget this because we're so inundated with the visual, but we don't understand that, especially this go back even to the caveman time. A woman's body showed fertility, right? It showed be able to bring forth life. And so a lot of times a man, just from a genetic and biological perspective, you see a woman, big booty, in your mind as a man, you're thinking, oh yeah, I just want to hit that. But part of your DNA and as a man and just reproduction in itself, a deeper you is seeing that as that woman has what it takes to bring forth life, her fertility, and her reproduction. And I'm gonna tell you, I know this firsthand because so many African men, particularly from like Nigeria, some, not all African men love and adore me, but I can't tell you how many times I've had an African man come up to me and tell me, you have beautiful birthing hips. You have beautiful birthing hips. And at first I used to be like, is he saying I'm fat? And then I realized when I was doing my research, I was like, no, that's what he's seeing. He's seeing the fertility. But unfortunately, a lot of times, as men, particularly, you might think, oh, I just like a big ass, because it's cushion for the pushing and all that good stuff, which in some cases it is. But at a deeper cellular level, it really is, it signifies in many cases reproduction. All right, so let's even take it deeper about African and the African diaspora and the beauty norms, right? So before colonialism and Western beauty standards, before the white man came over and played us by putting their standards and their religion, their God and everything on us, many African societies embraced curviness as a symbol of power, beauty, and womanhood. In West Africa, for instance, fuller lips and buttocks were seen as signs of fertility, indicators of health and prosperity, symbols of strength and femininity. All those things that are to be celebrated, not what as today where so many times it's just smutted out and just seen as something that's basically to get somebody's rocks off. No, these lips, our buttocks, signs of fertility, health, and prosperity. If you could afford to feed someone and a woman was able to get bigger and thicker, that showed wealth. It didn't show this is just a big greedy bitch that eat all day. I'm telling you, the worst thing that happened to the continent of Africa is white colonialism. These ideas about beauty traveled with the African diaspora and continue to show up in the Caribbean, Latin America, and Southern Black communities in the United States. So when Black folks celebrate curves, it's not just a trend. It's ancestral, it's cultural, it's historical, y'all. That's what it is. And unfortunately, so many people and our own race have taken on the white man's image of beauty. And so we are expecting our women to be waif thin. And again, I'm not saying for you to be fat and be out of shape and unhealthy. But what I'm saying is some women's bodies just may not be able to be a size 3 or 4. It's just not natural. That doesn't mean we have to be a size 36 either now. But I want us as Black women to celebrate our African beauty norms. Let's talk also about hip-hop culture and media reinforcement. The hip-hop era, R&B, played a huge role in mainstreaming this aesthetic of the big booty. So since the 1990s, music videos and lyrics were centered Black women's backside is iconic and desirable. Think about it. Songs like Sir Mix-a-Lot, Baby Got Back, Juvenile, Back That Ass Up, Nelly's Tip Drill, or Drake, Nicki Minaj, Meg Thee Stallion, them glorifying thickness. But as a person born in 1971, I remember in music videos back in the 80s, women, particularly black women, the focus wasn't on no big ass. Honestly, if you look at some of the videos, the women were definitely thinner. And unfortunately, a lot of the women in those videos who had leading roles were light skinned. So then in the 80s, we were dealing with the oppression of darker skinned, brown skinned women not being a symbol of beauty in our community. But if you look at those videos in the 80s, black women's butts being all huge, that was not the thing. It came apart in the maybe even the later 90s, early 2000s is when it just became ridiculous. All right. But let me go on back. Here's what's powerful. This wasn't just sexual, it was rebellion, y'all. It was the way to push back against thin, Eurocentric beauty standards. Black bodies were no longer just being erased, they were being celebrated. But it didn't come without a cost. So you gotta remember the 90s, particularly in the early 2000s, was a time, I mean, we had some of the greatest hip hop and rap out there. And so, of course, a lot of that was built on an awakening, our eyes opening to the injustices, right? So we had the KRS-One, we had the Nas, right? We had Wu-Tang, we had Public Enemy. I mean, we can just go on and on. Sister Soldier, right? We had all of them, Queen Latifah, and they had a message, right? All right, so black male identity and preference. Let's talk about the brothers for a second. All right, brothers, I'm talking to the brothers. All right. Many black men find fuller buttocks attractive, not just because of biology, but because it's what they grew up with, right? It was culturally familiar. It was affirming. It was a reflection of black beauty and pride. I remember this. Let me tell you something. I mean, I grew up with a black father and brothers. A sister with a big booty walked by. Everybody's turning their heads at a barbershop, right? I used to actually work in a barbershop. My barbershop name was Big Sexy. But anyway, in the barbershop, sister would walk by the window or come in and she had a big ass, everybody turned their head. So it's a subconscious message that when I was a little black girl or even other little black girls, when they see their dads turning their head, looking at a big butt, you're telling us that if we don't have a big butt as a black woman, that we aren't seen as alluring and desirable. And that is where you black men have to be cognizant of what you're doing, especially in front of your daughters. Because your daughter might not have no big old juicy Cardi B ass. And you don't want her worth to be built on that. So be careful when you turn in your head. And if you marry, you shouldn't be turning your head looking at no other woman's ass anyway. Ha! Checkmate. Okay. So some men see their attraction to big butts as a form of resistance, a refusal to conform to white beauty norms too. And some black men, you may not even know you're doing it because it's subconscious. There's also an emotional and spiritual element. The sway of hips, the rhythm of movement is sensual, it's beautiful and deeply rooted in black cultural expression. But even here, we have to draw boundaries between cultural pride and objectification. And I tell you, my husband, every time he tells me, he always he's like, Angela, I like watching you because you sway. Those were his words. You sway when you walk. It's like a rhythm. And as black people and as descendants from Africa, the drum and rhythm is everything to us, right? So when we black women walk and our hips sway, honey, it's like music. It's like them watching a symphony. Ah, my God, today. All right. So lastly, let's talk about social conditioning and fetishes. You know what? I'm going to stop and do that for a part 2. But what I want you all to know is, yes, many of it is cultural or just your preference, but a lot of what you like, men particularly with a big butt or just a larger size buttocks or what have you, is rooted in biology because it's the hip to waist ratio. It has nothing to do, even if the woman's butt is not all that big, the fact that a woman's curves and how we're built in our femininity, it reflects our fertility subconsciously and biologically. All right, this is part 1. I will see you part 2.